I kicked out one of my bridesmaids for showing up in the wrong dress. My wedding was back on Sunday, December 25th, and I'm still getting major backlash from this, so I want to know if this was a jerk move on my part. In the country I live in, it's currently winter, and we get a fair amount of snow, so my wedding was a winter-themed wedding. The color theme was forest green and gold. My dress was obviously white, and I specifically chose the color of my bridesmaids' dresses to be forest green as well. My maid of honor's dress was black, and everyone had to wear gold accessories. I have this friend that I asked to be one of my bridesmaids. We'll call her Emma. When we went dress shopping and I told them the color theme I was going for, Emma immediately expressed that she thought forest green was a terrible choice. She said that forest green is not a flattering color, and thought I should choose something different and more girly. I said no because my wedding was winter themed and I thought the color would be perfect with the winter theme. She suggested a pink, blue or red. I said no, but I thanked her for giving an opinion. She found out my maid of honor's dress was black and asked if she could wear black too. I said no, only my maid of honor is wearing black. I paid for all the dresses. Fast forward to wedding day, everyone's getting their hair and makeup done and Emma shows up 30 minutes late holding a bag that looked like it had a dress inside. I asked her what this was for. She told me it was for later on at the reception if she got uncomfortable and wanted to change after pictures. I was like okay cool, because I really didn't care. Fast forward, we're all dressed and walking down the stairs because the ceremony is beginning in 20 minutes and we were going to take some pictures before. Emma is the last person to come down and she's wearing a black dress. At the time I was preoccupied taking pictures with my parents, but my maid of honor came over to me and made me aware of the situation. I confronted Emma about her dress and asked her what was going on. She said she hates her bridesmaid dress and the color is so ugly, it makes her look gross, so she's wearing black. I told her please go back and change. She refused and started walking away from me. I said I'm going to ask her one more time and if she doesn't oblige I'm calling security and kicking her out. I don't care. She began yelling at me to telling me how I'm being inconsiderate, so I called security. She started making a big scene yelling saying that I can't force her to wear anything and that I'm a horrible, inconsiderate friend. Ever since the wedding, Emma has been blowing up my phone with texts saying some really nasty things and asking me for the money back she spent on the black dress since it was a waste and she didn't get to wear it. I had to block her number. Some of my other bridesmaids have been saying that it was a little harsh kicking her out and embarrassing her like that and that maybe I should give her the money back. So am I wrong for kicking her out?
I bought my cheating ex-girlfriend a gift she always wanted and it completely destroyed her happiness. I was with my girlfriend for 4 years and during the time we spent together I was convinced I was the happiest man alive. I was already picturing our future together, kids and everything. One day while she was away, I was searching for something in our bedroom. I started to hear some buzzing coming under from her pillow and found out that she had forgotten her phone. It kept buzzing, so I let curiosity get the better of me and decided to look through her phone. I already knew her password from casually snooping one time, so I unlocked it. A bad thing for me to do, I know, but in retrospect, I couldn't be more glad that I did. It was just some email notifications, but I figured that since I was at the point of no return already, I might as well just look around. At this stage, cheating was not at all a factor for me. Again, I was convinced we were going to be married and have kids and live the life we both dreamed of. But something still urged me to go check her contacts, so I did. I knew all of her friends and family, so initially nothing stood out. Until I spotted the name Work Baby. I just clicked and I was immediately hit with a pic of her wearing the exact lingerie I gifted her for Valentine's, followed by him complimenting her with her reciprocating. The sweet and loving perception I had of her was instantly destroyed. I dropped her phone. I practically lost all motor function at that point. Like you simply can't put into words how confused and broken I was. I then went into the bathroom to vomit and stayed there for a good hour. I didn't want her to know that I just figured this out yet though, so I placed her phone back and went to go sit in the lounge until she came back. She asked me what was wrong. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I just came up with a lie to not alarm her. I couldn't sleep obviously, so during the night I decided to come up with a plan. The next day came and she had to go somewhere again around midday. I go on Tiffany.com and take a screenshot of a 1.5K set of earrings as if I'm about to buy them just to get her hopes up. I sent her a message saying, "Since work's been going really good, this is all yours," and attached the picture of the earrings I screenshotted. She gets extremely excited and starts sending me love hearts, calling me the best boyfriend, and said how she can't wait until she gets home. I had a lot of time to kill till she got back, so I cleared out all of her clothes from her closet and put it in a suitcase. I wrote a note just saying "Work Baby" and placed it on top of her suitcase. I then gently placed everything outside. I locked my door at around 7 p.m. I started to hear her bashing on my door, followed by a dozen raging texts and her trying to call me, so I switched off my phone and maxed out the volume on my speakers to drown out the noise. I think my girlfriend is going to break up with me after I did some questionable things. I'm in the most loving and giving relationship with my girlfriend of 3 years. I just need advice because she messaged me this morning asking to talk and I think she's going to break up with me. It started a couple months ago when we were at the mall and she saw a ring from a jeweler that she really liked. She makes good money, and the ring would be easy for her to buy. When the saleswoman started talking to her, eager for the sale, I blew my fuse a bit and started walking off. She followed me and asked where I was going, and I got annoyed and snapped at her. I said something like, "I get that you want to buy the stupid ring, so go buy it," and stormed away from her. She tried to hold my hand and say something, but I shooed her away and left. She ended up taking a Uber home because I drove us. I drove to her house and told her to come outside. I explained myself that it made me insecure and emasculated for her to outright buy a $300 ring, and it made me feel bad that I couldn't buy that for her. She forgave me and we eventually made up. A month later we got into another big fight. We were out shopping and a guy came up to her while she was waiting for me to come back from the washroom and was obviously flirting with her. She politely turned him away and stated she had a boyfriend. This happened so frequently that it really made me stew over all the times it happened, and I did something that I acknowledged was wrong. When we were at a candle store and some workers were speaking to me and flirting a little, I reciprocated in front of my girlfriend. She didn't say a word. When we were in the car I asked sarcastically if she liked how it felt to see some random people flirt and come onto your partner in public in front of you. She didn't say a word again. The breaking point was when I picked a fight over the same thing 2 nights in a row. We were at my place and she asked if I wanted to go out to eat, and I said I was craving this new restaurant that just opened up. She said she was just going to rest her eyes while I got dressed and ready. She closed her eyes for maybe 5 minutes and I ended up telling her that I really should save my money and that we didn't have to go out. She insisted and I snapped a bit and said that I wanted to save money and that I didn't have a cushy job like her. She didn't say anything, but once again asked if I wanted to go and I said absolutely not. So she left. I got really angry and I started texting her that she knew I really wanted to go get food from that place, that I was starving and why couldn't she have just gone and taken me. It was irrational on my end, I admit it. We ended up making up after that fight. The next night she was driving me home and she asked if I wanted anything to eat. I said no, and reminded her that I'd rather save my money since I was unemployed. She acknowledged that and dropped me off at home. When she left, I blew up her phone with texts telling her she didn't care about me or anyone else, that she was selfish, that I was starving and that I wanted food and that now it was nearly midnight and I had to cook myself a meal. She snapped back and asked if she had to be cooking for me at midnight and I called her and screamed that I shouldn't have to beg my girlfriend to make me a meal and spend time with me. She hung up on me. I apologized that same night. She texted me and said she wants to talk and she's coming over in the afternoon. I'm terrified. How do I rectify this situation? How do I apologize? How do I keep my relationship?
My foster parents treated me like crap, so I obliterated their reputation in our small town. My parents passed away in a hit-and-run car accident when I was 10 years old. My dad was only 39 and my mom 35. Neither of my parents had relatives who could take me in. We lived in a really small, church-going town where everyone knew each other. My dad had been the heir to a small fortune and so I didn't really have to work. He didn't like the big cities, so him and my mom decided to move to a small town where he could have an antique store. My mom was into collecting antiques. I would have had to go the orphanage route when they passed, but this couple from the church, who I will call Mr. and Mrs. Banks, made this big to-do in church about how a little girl needs a loving home, and God has given us this joyous task of bringing her up in our home and hearts. It's been a long time and I don't remember if those were Mrs. Banks' exact words, but they were something cringe-worthy like that. The Banks family had their own daughter Ella, who was a year older than me. That should have meant we would be super good friends, but Ella had her own thing going and always ignored me. The Banks received a stipend from the state to take care of me, but they also received checks every month from my dad's estate, which was supposed to take care of me until I was 18. When I did turn 18, I would receive full control of my parents' inheritance. The Banks weren't exactly cruel to me, but in private it was clear they were just using me to build up their reputation in our small town. In front of other people they'd fawn over me in a sick, cotton candy fashion that made me uncomfortable. They'd also make Ella be nice to me in public, which she hated. The Banks would also put on a big show whenever social workers came to check up on me. They'd coach me before the lady would come, and tell me to praise how godly and wonderful they were. After the social worker left, they'd go right back to ignoring me and spending my dad's money on anything they ever wanted. Nice dinners, vacations, etc. It was clear to me even as a teen that the Banks family were only using some of my endowment, both from the state and from my trust, to take care of me. The rest, they spent on themselves. As I grew older, I could see that my foster parents would pretend as though they had great business acumen and that's why they had more money and could buy a new Volvo. Where I'm from, a new Volvo is an event and take a trip to New York and buy fancy clothes for Ella. When I was 17, I noticed that my foster parents were stockpiling away my trust fund money to pay for Ella's tuition to college. Throughout this time, the Banks would never outright say so, but would heavily imply that I owed them and that once I got control of my inheritance, that I should be godly and generous and give them some material compensation for all the work they did to raise me. I think they already got lots of material. Especially since Mrs. Banks practically stole all of my mom's antiques from her store and kept them for herself, gave them to Ella, or to her other relatives. One thing my mom never kept at her store was an extremely expensive, Baroque-era fine china set, absolutely complete and worth tens of thousands of dollars. Not a replica, but the real deal. So real, Napoleon Bonaparte himself might well have eaten the steak off those plates. Probably not, but you get the point. It was my china set of course, but Mrs. Banks thought I was an idiot and didn't know that. She would always talk about how this china set will go to Ella on her wedding day. Mrs. Banks assumed that since I always dressed like a tomboy, I didn't care for all my mom's antiques that Mrs. Banks stole or gave away, that I just didn't care about the china set. When I was a kid, my mom told me that things were just things, and never obsess over them. So, having the frou-frou china set for myself wasn't an issue. What was an issue was Mrs. Banks acting like it was hers to give away, which is so wrong. So, once Ella went off to college, thanks to my biological mom and dad's money, I had to make my own plans. I had always done well in school and had actually gotten a partial scholarship to attend school out of state. I could easily pay for with my inheritance, which I would very soon have control of. Per usual, Mr. and Mrs. Banks were telling me about how I owed them compensation, and since I was going to be rich soon I ought to share the wealth. I figured that over the past 7 years they probably stole or misappropriated more than $200,000 of my parents' money, to say nothing of the state money they misused.